Hi, I'm Louie Pratt. I'm a sophomore at the Whitehall High School, and I'm a member of Whitehall SAD and Empire State SAD, and I am having coffee with a cop, and I'm with Lieutenant Dan Slater.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Slater. I'm a lieutenant with the Village of Ossining Police Department. I am in my 36th year as a police officer. I first started out in New York City Transit in 1985. I transferred to Ossining in summer of 1987, and been here ever since. And it's been quite a ride. A lot of great things. Some dark days, but the good definitely outweighs the bad. And I could start off by saying policing is nothing like what I thought based on what I saw on TV growing up. It absolutely wasn't Starsky and Hutch. But happy to be here with you guys.
All right. So why did you decide to be a cop?
Interesting story, because initially when I first took the police test, had just left architecture school. I went to Newark Institute of Technology to become an architect, and oddly, I still kind of have a passion for it. But let me back up a little bit. As a kid, I always wanted to be a cop. If my mother saved drawings I made in kindergarten and stuff, and the police cars and bad guys and all that kind of stuff. And when growing up, playing cops and robbers, back in those days and and stuff. So I'm kind of dating myself, but as I got into high school, I had a passion for design, particularly in architecture for homes and things like that. And so I went to New York Institute of Technology on Long Island, but I ran out of money, and they didn't give out student loans. Probably, thankfully, back then you got basically one a year. So I had enough for one semester, and they told me go out, break your butt, make some money, and then come back, when you can pay us. So I was like, wow, my father could have told me that. I didn't have to come all the way down to Long Island here. But yeah, so I was doing little side jobs and stuff like that. I painted houses and things for a while, and but I realized that, listen, when I graduated high school, coming down the stairs from the county center where they had a graduation, I had the realization that it was weird, because it kind of struck me all of a sudden. Walking down the steps and feeling real happy I graduated in it, and I was like, wait a minute, now I looked at my parents and I was like, now this is real. This is on me. I got to make my mark. So I started off with college and pursuing the architecture thing, and and going back to my childhood dream of becoming a police officer. Then, with the obstacle of not being able to continue college, I took the police test in New York City, and I took the fire department test in Yonkers. And if they didn't call me, because I needed to be on my own, and I just didn't want to stay at home. Not for I grew up in had a great childhood and stuff, but I just felt I had to move on. And was either, if the NYPD didn't call me when they did, I probably would have been in the military. So the city had just kind of scat me up the week before I went to the recruiter's office. So that's pretty much how it happened. I guess a little bit of providential destiny.
Yep.
Are you interested in law enforcement, or?
I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
I feel like a lot of people, they know me. They're always like, "Oh, Louie, what's going on? What's happening?" So I feel like being in maybe the news business would be really good for me,
Mm-hmm.
to inform people and stuff.
One thing about being a cop in the community that you work, if you're good and you're involved, you know everything that's going on.
That is
the
very
real of everything that's going on,
unfiltered. That is something definitely to consider.
Yeah. And also, if you're interested, if you wanted to be, in communications and stuff like that, larger departments always need public information officers, and that's an art. I had taken some courses, and I'm fairly good at it, but it is absolutely, I have a lot of respect for the people that do it for any of the presidents, because they have to get up there, take the bullets, and you have to give them, the people asking the questions some acceptable answers that are, at least reasonable, and with some content in order to have any credibility. So it's tough, and it's easy to mess up in that. But definitely a great field to pursue if that would be your interest.
Okay. What's your favorite kind of coffee? Like, where would you get it? Starbucks, Dunkin', local, something like that?
My favorite, if I had to go to a drive-through, McDonald's when it was $1 for a large cup.
Yeah.
No, but actually, I prefer not so much Starbucks. And I'm not sure why. I like a strong cup of coffee, but not a burnt tasting cup of
Yep.
coffee. So I could probably prefer more like unless I'm having an espresso, which I love. But that's special. That's that's a little bit different. But for my morning cup of coffee, I want something that's bold, that just doesn't taste burnt or bitter. So kind of a medium to lighter roast. I like at home we get San Francisco Bay coffee. You get it off of Amazon.
Yep.
The little K cups, stuff like that. I think they have it which I find is really, really good. Green Mountain, I really don't care for it. It's a little bit weak for my palate, at least in my machine. But that tends to be really, really good. And Black Rifle coffee, I really like. Those guys are like, they're funny as hell. They make, at first I thought it was a gimmick. They make really, really good coffee. So that would be it. San Francisco Bay, Black Rifle. And
so, what's the coolest part of your job?
oh wow. I guess it would depend on what my position was at the time. Probably the most actual fun I had personally was, and some of the more challenging was when I first transferred up from New York City. I worked as an undercover here in Ossining, and I was pretty much set out alone. I had, my own car. I got a job driving a taxi cab around town. Only a couple of the detectives knew me. The officers here didn't even know me, so I would get pulled over and things like that. For a while that was really, really fun, but it turns out being really dangerous. I got into a couple of scraps, caught a couple of black eyes. Yeah, things are. Ossining wasn't this quiet little bucolic community. Definitely not as nice as it is now. It was a little bit rough back then. It was in the late 80s, and crack had hit the street with a vengeance, and it would really, really took some of the river communities, here in Westchester. And it really ruined some neighborhoods. But working undercover, and then after that, I did work patrol, and I really had a good time working patrol. Some of the best parts of the job, just the camaraderie and fellowship with the other officers and things like that, because it does become family. You spend so much time together, and it's and you depend on each other a lot for a lot of different things, and then you fight like families too. There's family grudges, within the building and stuff here. And back in the day, it wouldn't be, wasn't common, but you wouldn't be shocked if there was a little shoving match in a locker room and things like that. But that was, kind of part of it. That doesn't make it right, whatever happened, but it was kind of part of it. But also I worked narcotics for a while, and as an investigator. That was very good. That was part of a task force through the district attorney's office, and I got promoted to a sergeant from there, and that was great because I was still involved, at the street level. I had a few less people to tell me what to do, and building a team with the squad I was working with. So that was actually very, very fulfilling. And becoming a trainer. I'm an instructor. I'm a general topics instructor, flashbang instructor, SWAT instructor, and things like that. So teaching at the academy, those skill sets and everything, teaching young cops even how to drive. I'm an EVOC instructor. So watching them grow in their training and watching them progress was really, really, really great. Then meeting them on the road later on, It's awesome to see how well they're doing and stuff like that, and have them come up to you and thank you, says, you know what you taught me that time in the academy saved my life or helped me to do this, this, and this. It's very rewarding. So that would probably be the favorite part of my job, was the training aspect of it, and using mistakes I've made in the past and things I've learned to help younger police officers not to make those same mistakes and how to do it better than I did. Because that's always the goal. Anybody I've ever trained, I want them to be better ultimately than I ever was. And then that makes me successful as a trainer.
Do you think teens can make a difference in the way their peers and other friends drive?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Having already raised 2 teens that are now adult men, and having a teen daughter now, that she's a young teen, she's 14, peer pressure is powerful, both in the positive and the negative. And it is extremely important because really, you're setting an example for the people around you. And it's very difficult, but you gain a lot of respect when you kind of go against the tide. Because sometimes the real popular thing, the fad or the momentum that the culture has at a given time is not the healthiest one. And there are subcultures within our general culture. So picking the right one to be in the one that's healthy, takes leadership and takes a lot of strength. And you're going to come up against obstacles. And even in adulthood, it's pretty much the same thing. Like now, you see a lot of bad stuff going on now. There's a lot of good, also. And sometimes the people that are doing good find themselves a little frustrated. But you as a teen, it's a great place to start. And it's a great time to start learning those kind of positive leadership skills.
What's the biggest issue you've seen teen drivers have?
Distraction. Because that leads to so many different things, because distraction even leads to excessive speeds. It leads into driving into situations that you had no business driving into, especially when you're inexperienced, because as your experience builds, you'll have a little bit more wiggle room, but that doesn't mean you have to get careless, but you're able to respond a little quicker and avoid some otherwise things that could have been catastrophes. But distractions now in vehicles. When I first started driving, don't tell anybody, this is just between us 3, but I bought my first car when I was 14 years old. My uncle had a car lot, so I used to keep it up there. It was a 69 Mustang, and I worked on it in the lot and stuff like that. But I used to drive it around the lot, and then every once in a while venture out when nobody's around, go to the gas station, put gas in, and come back around and stuff. That was a long time ago, and I don't advocate that. That's a bad thing to do. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Ask me that question again.
It was, what's the biggest issue you've seen teen drivers have?
Oh, yes.
Distraction.
Yeah, the car that I had an AM radio, 1 speaker, and that was it. A few stations. That was it. You had WABC, WNBC, a couple news stations, WOR, and 88, 1010 Winds, and everything else was static. But now, and the sound systems in cars now are amazing. You can't even hear a siren if a car pulls up. We actually installed what's called a rumbler in the police cars now, and where it creates. Have you heard one? It makes your chest rattle if it's behind you. So what it's designed to do is to shake the interior pieces like your rearview mirror in the car. So if you can't hear it, you're going to feel a vibration. If you have a chest cold and you stand in front of the police car and you hit the rumble and everything, it'll loosen up all the mucus in your chest. It's that powerful. It's a very low frequency, like a whoa, that kind of breaks through the noise fog, that you have on the road. Because who's beeping the horn, who has the radios on? The cars are so well insulated now. And it's very easy to get isolated in that environment and just tune everything out. You got music on demand. Before, the only music you got, you set to your favorite station or whatever it was, and that was it. Now it's on your phone, and there's just, and I have the temptation myself now to reach down and, you're trying to change it. Even though I have it on the dashboard, it is just as distracting if I'm turning a radio dial. So you have to really, it takes a lot of self-awareness to not do that. Am I making a phone call? No, but am I technically using the electronic device when I do that? Yeah, it seems innocent enough, but you're taking your eyes off the road. Plus, you have a tendency, you're going to steer where your eyes go. And that's why so many cops get hit on the side of the road at night, particularly by drunks, because the strobe lights attract the vision of in the attention of the drunk driver, and he'll tend to lean towards that direction and just kind of naturally, involuntarily steer towards the direction that he's looking. So distraction is a big thing. Too many kids in a car, too much chatter and conversation in the car. Sometimes driving is business, and it can be deadly. There's an average of over 30. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but about 30,000 highway deaths a year for different causes. Many speed. Locally here, we only have one major thoroughfare that drives through that's above 30 miles an hour. It's a 55 mile an hour road. But a majority of our accidents are driver inattention. So, in some other places we have more open road speed, and misjudging your speed and road conditions would be another one. Did I answer your question? Did I ramble on and completely confuse you?
You answered it.
Okay, good.
What do you wish people know about law enforcement?
Oh, wow. Probably what I found out early on, it's not like what you see on TV. And that we're just like everybody else. I mean, police officers are just members of the community that kind of get paid to watch out for other members of the community. And yeah, we make mistakes. We have good days. We have bad days. But by and large, we're just like anybody else out there. So we're not bulletproof. We have families, that we have to think about, things like that. So sometimes, sometimes it gets a little frustrating because you can, go on a DOA, particularly when it involves a child or a young child. Now the next call you go on a domestic, and that's heated, and that just kind of, it's like a wave hitting you again. And now you have to go on another call where you have to kind of give somebody some counseling and things like that. And at the end of the day, I'll go home and, why are you so quiet? You're crabby. And, so it's, it happens, but, people don't necessarily, they don't understand because it's cumulative too. So over the years, it's a little bit difficult to, you have to know, you have to recognize it, and you have to have a strategy to unwind, and because it could creep up on you. But yeah, that would be that, if people know that we were human, we have families, we have moms, dads, we actually have people that love us, believe it or not. But we're in the position where most of our contact, unfortunately, can be negative because we're the ones that tell people no. We're the ones that don't speed, don't drink and drive. We keep everybody from doing all the things that they think are fun. But put on your social distancing mask and and everything like that. Now that's current now. And it's so we're always kind of looked at as like the cops always have a saying, everybody loves a fireman.
Who was your role model?
I had a few. I mean, as far as police or in general?
In general.
In general, wow. A lot of strong men in my family. A lot of good role models that we had. Each with their strengths, each with their, their own imperfections and things like that. But my dad, rest in peace, kind of that quiet, kind of gentle kind of strength. Rarely, raised his voice. When he did, the earth shook. But just an easygoing guy. And my uncle Jack, who was a police officer actually here in Ossining, he told me, he said, put your application in when I got on the job in the city. And I'd kind of forgotten about it, but a good man, great man. I used to actually paint with him. Great guy, great role model. And my other uncle had the car lot. It taught me some good things and bad things. So I was aware when I became a cop, I could recognize, some different behaviors. So I got a little diet of that growing up. My grandfather taught me how to fish and things like that. So my other uncle I used to go tuna fishing with and things like that. And, one thing that they all taught me was about hard work. And it never comes all at once. You have a lifetime to build on one small success to another one. There's going to be mistakes and setbacks in between, but you keep that positive trajectory going, and you just do when you feel overwhelmed and you think that you're just kind of stuck, you just do the next good thing, make the next good decision. So you do it with charity. Sometimes you got to be a little selfless to get to that point, but it's worth it in the long run. And if you think if you want to become a cop and expect to get accolades and everything all the time, and everything goes smooth, forget it. Buy a puppy instead. But otherwise, your reward is in the big end.
Can you tell us about an experience as a cop that you'll never forget?
Oh, there's been a few. There's a few I'd like to forget. Wow, honestly, the most prominent one that I kind of, it pops into mind every day. It's not something that I dwell on, but I was involved in a police shooting back in 1998. Wow, that's a long time ago now. But I was chasing a suspect with a gun, and he turned the corner. He actually went into the front of a recess of a building, and at that time, another police car on my back was coming from another direction, so they got out of their vehicles. And but he came up and he challenged us with his weapon out, and we ended up in a gunfight, and he passed. And it was really, really unfortunate. It was a very, very trying time going through. There was a lot of civil unrest afterwards. There's a lot of allegations made, a lot of false allegations. But that was a really tough time for my family. We had death threats, and so that was probably the most memorable. But that was a fairly negative one. But positive things came out of it too, because it made me a much better trainer. I developed as a trainer from there, because everything that went right that night was because of my training. Everything that could have been done better was because we needed more training. So it really helped me focus on that aspect of it and sharing proper tactics, proper ethics, and instilling that in everybody, because you're going to be looked at in that situation under such a microscope. Really, it's a microscope, colonoscopy, endoscopy. It's, you're getting fully, we had the FBI involved, state police, county police, DAs. So it's, it was an experience, but that'd probably be the most prominent one. But good things, came out of it ultimately. Statistically, I should have left the job within 5 years of that. Instead, I got promoted twice. So everything worked out. Thank God.
What motivates you to get up every day and, go to law enforcement and do your job?
I like breakfast. It's, sometimes I ask myself that, because honestly, sometimes there are days that, listen, I'm 56 years old. I've had 3 knee operations. I'm waiting for, I need a knee replacement right now. I had major back surgery a few years ago. So I get aches and pains in the morning, especially in the wintertime, getting up. But I don't know, because it becomes kind of a calling, and there's people that depend on you. And not that when I leave, somebody else is just going to take my place, but I still feel I have a few good miles left. And plus my family depends on me. So I do provide the income for my daughter is still young. One day I'll get to kick back and just buy a small little fishing boat and the fruits of all my labor. That's but it is rewarding, as hard as it is sometimes. It's like going to the gym. Your hardest workouts are the ones that you benefit the most from. So in those hard days, if you push through, better days are coming. So.
What is some advice you would give to a new teen driver?
Pay attention. Don't speed. The laws are there. 10 and 2. But yeah, practice. It's really, I wish, I told you I'm an EVOC instructor, so I instruct new police officers in the academy for emergency vehicle operation. And I was kind of surprised how many bad habits in a short amount of time that drivers accumulate, whether it's driving with 2 feet, kind of, just laying back and driving just and even sometimes either too far from the wheel is very, very common. So yeah, there's develop and keep and practice good driving skills. And I would recommend going to, if you have the means, to go to a driving school where you can test the limits of your ability versus the car's ability versus the road's ability to hold the car, because there's a lot of physics and science that come into play. And the better you're aware of it you are, the less likely you are to panic in a situation. And teaching my son to drive, I just took him to an open parking lot, grabbed a couple of cones, and I'm sure the people up at the mall don't really like it, but I would do some evasive maneuvers with him just so he could feel the energy transfer, in the car and how the car responds to his actions. Because if you overcompensate, you're going to wreck. If you undercompensate, you're going to wreck, at some point. So aside from driving safe, having a good skill set in driving is imperative. And I see less and less of it now.
How do you feel about GDL laws?
I like the progressive nature of them, because like it relates kind of what I had just said about becoming a more skilled driver. As you get older, you have more driving experience, then you could expose yourself to more. So incrementally, what that does, it allows you to, kind of forces you to progressively kind of graduate to each skill level that's appropriate. So I like it. I mean, personally, I wish we had a thing where at certain ages we could take new road tests, because like I said, even teaching in the academy, and the age runs from anywhere from 21 to 35 years old, let's say, more in the 20s bracket. And the bad habits that are developed can be a little bit scary, because now you have a basically, police car on average weighs about 4,200 pounds. That's a 4,200 pound club that could kill people, easily, and yourself. And most of the accidents are actually avoidable. So knowing how to properly operate it and control it, and doing it within the limits, of the laws that are been set to actually. A lot of people think the rules are in place to kind of restrict your behavior. No, they're actually there to allow you to freely, transport yourself on the road, because otherwise it'll be just chaos and nobody will get anywhere safely. So look at that speed restriction sign as that's a freedom mechanism that allows me to get from A to B safely, as opposed to being on Autobahn where it's, well, yeah, I'll get there maybe. I'll get to A and B maybe. And you don't want to get to B in an ambulance either. So
What's your biggest fear as a cop?
my biggest fear actually is if I feel I stop learning. That's actually my biggest fear, because at that point I become ineffective and dated. Because I don't want to be that guy. Right now, I'm the oldest man in my department. I'm the oldest and most senior. I don't know how that happened, because I was young and cool yesterday. Yeah, that would be my biggest fear, is actually becoming untrainable and unable to learn new things. I did pretty good. I got my camera working, so I guess I still, I can hang out for a little bit more.
Any career advice for someone who wants to work in the law enforcement?
Aside from open up your deferred compensation account and donate to it every paycheck and keep that going, some financial advice, which I wish somebody had told me. It's something that don't take it just for the benefits, okay? Because it is the type of job that will eat you up if you don't have your heart in it. You know, it's not that it's Fallujah out here every day, but you're dealing with people's stresses. You're seeing people in their worst most of the time. Most of the stuff, if we get invited to a birthday, it's usually if a family member lives in town, or if we're holding maybe a street barbecue, which we do from time to time before this virus thing and everything hit. We would have street barbecues and things like that. We just have a block party, you know, put some barricades, get some burgers and hot dogs, flip them, and, you know, just kind of have a good time. But yeah, you know, you have to kind of steel yourself from some of the negativity, and you have to have positive outlets, you know, and join something other than, don't just surround yourself with cops. Have a wider circle of friends, because you're going to need those other perspectives too. And those are some of the people that are going to say, if they notice a change in your behavior or anything like that, those are some of the people that will say, hey, something's up with Danny. Because other cops are kind of growing in that direction with you. So you kind of be a little bit, you don't want to become insulated from the outside world. You want to stay part of it. And remember that you are there to serve. You're given a lot of authority, but with that authority is a lot of responsibility, because you're taking away people's freedoms. Ultimately, you're stopping people from doing things that they're doing. Yeah, stay in shape, stay mentally in shape, and stay emotionally in shape. So, you know, have the outlets that are healthy. That doesn't mean going, you know, to the bar after work and stuff like that and pounding them down. It means going home, having a good family life, having a good circle of friends, a positive circle of friends and things like that. And just do some positive stuff with you, like hiking, kayaking, even going to the range recreationally and everything like that is a great stress reliever for me. You know, just some downtime, just away from the job. Don't be a cop 24/7. You would want, when people in your neighborhood, oh, it's just Dan. I don't know Dan was a cop. You know, that's kind of my goal. I don't want to carry that around like Dirty Harry all the time, because that's just really not healthy for you. In my opinion, anyway. I'm sure there's people that disagree, but that's my opinion. That's what's kept me sane so far.
What do you listen to when you're driving around in the squad car?
The radio is not that great in my car, so sometimes news. I'm a little bit of a talk radio junkie. Love music, predominantly country, but I listen to other stuff. I do like some of the classical stuff. Every once in a while,
Country up here.
I'll sneak in some like 80s rap, you know, some of the old stuff. But yeah, I guess predominantly, you know, country. Yeah, I got a pretty eclectic music taste. I even like opera. I've been to the opera. I love opera. Yeah, no, that's it. You know, some keep myself, you know, current in the news and things like that.
How do you spend your days off?
Usually working on my house or doing something with the kids and everything like that. One thing about the ages of my children are very spread out. So, and I tease my wife and I says, we've been through 3 adult transitional periods at one time, because my one son was going into college when my daughter was going to kindergarten. My youngest was going into kindergarten. So, you know, we went from almost, because before my wife found out, literally a month before we found out my wife was pregnant with my daughter, we were thinking about moving. I'm looking at fishing boats and property down on the coast of Georgia and stuff like that. And my wife was actually scared to approach me and tell me that she was pregnant, because she said I was planning things. And then my daughter came around and changed everything. It was great. No regrets. She's my heart. Yeah, I spend a lot, you know, spending time with my family, fishing and everything. That's my joy. Cooking, I really enjoy cooking, especially for large groups of people, because even if it's a small group of people, I'm going to cook the same amount of food. So it's just, right, Lauren, you get it. I remember my grandmother was a little 4'11" Italian lady, never left the stove. That's all she did was cook.
Have you ever taught anyone how to drive?
Yes. Aside from evac, which was like a day off for me. That's fun in the park for me. But teaching my boys to drive, probably one of the I think that was more stressful than my shooting. Teaching especially my oldest son, just And I don't know if you guys believe in angels or not, but I do, especially since that day, because we were driving up a road. We were approaching a traffic light, and there was about 5 cars between us. It was one way this way, double yellow line, one way this way, one way that way. So I said, Dan, make a left at the light. So the light was red, and we were about 5 cars back. Now I thought he would have understood that when the right light turns green to make the left once we hit the intersection. No, he drives into the oncoming lane. An oil truck makes the turn onto the road. There's no shoulder, nothing. It's just that like a ditch. I have absolutely no. I couldn't even scream. I was just like, that silent. Time like stopped, and all of a sudden we're over on the other side of the intersection. I'm like, I have no idea how we got. I literally have no idea how we got there. And needless to say, I taught him some new vocabulary, and we traded seats, and took off. But he's a pretty conscientious driver that night. But that wasn't my shining trucker moment. Who taught you to drive?
I have actually not started driving yet. That's
okay.
Next year, next summer, that's when it all starts, Definitely got to get prepared.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, let's practice. And they're like, we're going to wait a little bit. I'm like, it might be a little scary if we wait a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah, no, you know what? And even like driving, even like driving a lawn tractor, even a bicycle, anything like that is helpful. The video games for judgmental stuff, yeah, can be great. But as far as getting the feel for the road and the car and the physical dynamics of it, even driving a lawnmower around, sitting on the tractor and stuff like that, the relationship to hand, eye, foot, your coordination and things like that, using the same muscle groups. So, and neurologically, you're kind of dealing with some of the same skills. So anything like that is helpful.
I have practiced once before. There was a store that like shut down nearby us, so there's like this empty parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say I did not do so well on my turns. I almost like went right through the store. Luckily, I had myself stopped before we got too close. So I was definitely like, we're gonna have to work on this. This is gonna be a work in progress.
Practice makes perfect, and it's a perishable skill, driving. So, once you start and you practice the good stuff, because you don't want to practice the bad habits, but practice the good stuff. And that turning and then manipulating, introducing power, reducing power by stepping on the brake. In a vehicle, there's always energy transfer when it's not parked. So every time you turn, energy shifts. Every time you slow down, it shifts again. When you speed up, it shifts again. And any combination of those things can either pull you out of a bad situation or put you in one. So you have to, for one thing, if you're plowing forward, you're turning, you have the wheel turn, say the road's slippery, and you got your foot on the brake, take your foot off the brake, and the car will pull to whatever direction your wheels are in. Just as a side, because you just said you almost went through the store. That's probably what happened.
It definitely was. I was not.
Okay.
I was a very good experience, but very scary as well. I still can't believe I did that.
Everybody does.
It was very scary in the moment.
But you get it. After a while, it becomes second nature to where, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but sometimes I'll be driving. I'm like, well, you just don't remember, you passing the road. You just become so involved. You're kind of aware of everything going around you, but it's just, it becomes second nature. They like this coffee mug.
It's very cool.
It keeps teasing me that it looks like I'm having a Moscow Mule out of it, but it's actually from a soda truck that was up in Saratoga when my daughter was racing in a regatta up there. Wild Bill's old-fashioned soda pop.
I've heard of there. I've actually been somewhere and I've seen them there. They have the fancy little mugs. Those are very cool.
Yeah, really cool. And it keeps my coffee warm.
There you go. When you're stopped by an officer, what should you do?
Don't panic. Follow directions. I'll tell you what I do in the few times that I've gotten stopped. I pull over to a safe part of the shoulder. First, I'll slow down. Pull over to the signal. Pull over to the shoulder. put my car in park, keep my seatbelt on, turn the vehicle off, turn on my hazards, turn on the interior light. I'll even do it during the day just so it's habit. That's what I tell my kids to do. Turn on the interior light. Just and keep your hands visible. More than likely, you're going to have a little bit of time to get your wallet out. So you want your paperwork accessible, readily accessible, so you don't have to dig for it. So if you can, keep your insurance card and your registration. If your car has a center console, which most do now, just keep it there on top somewhere. Most of the tops have like a little space to put documents. Just keep them in there, and just keep them there, so you don't have to go rifling through a stuffed glove compartment, things that you have to be reaching for things. Keep your hands there, and you just, be respectful and cooperative. It's okay to ask an officer, why did you stop me? But you don't want to hold court on the side of the road. So even if you think that the officer is wrong, that's not the place it's going to get settled. Because I could tell you probably 99.99% of the time, you might not have realized what you did, or even if the officer's wrong, his decision is not going to be changed by you arguing with him. So, be as respectful as you can. And be cooperative, and don't give him a reason to, to suspect anything. As far as don't have tinted windows. That raises the cops, that hinks them up right away, because you can't see, and you have to challenge somebody now. And even if it's just a traffic stop, you just don't know what's in the car, so don't tint the windows. But that's it. Just be respectful, follow directions, and and that's it.
What's the hardest part of being a cop?
I guess I advised you against it, earlier to anybody thinking about becoming a cop, not expect to get congratulated for everything you do, because you deal with a lot of people's problems and things like that. But after a while, you do sometimes feel underappreciated by the community that you serve, and sometimes they'll even turn on you. But that is part of what you do. But that can, that can be challenging, because we're, like I said, we're all human. We go home. Not only are we dealing with problems on the street and families' problems that are here at work, but we go home and life is still happening. Everybody has families, sick parents, children that are go astray and things like that, or relatives that are bad neighbors. I mean, name it. Dog dies, goldfish dies. They're all dealing with that same stuff too. And then when you've just dealt with 12 hours worth or 16 hours worth sometimes, and you go home, and it's like, so the hardest, you want to keep that separated. We want to recognize, when that stuff is happening. So if you're expecting to be appreciated every day, you're going to set yourself for a heartbreak, because it's just not going to happen. Just keep smiling, and just, like I said before, you just do the next good thing.
Well, I asked you just about every question on our list. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It was very interesting. A lot of good information to know.
Good.
A lot of good advice.
Anything different than you thought? Do you think any of my answers different than what you might have expected?
I haven't really thought about it. I'm not sure. It's definitely good to know. I'm from upstate New York, and I'm sure you're from a different place, so it's nice to know, what people think from a different situation, from a different area.
Mm-hmm.
And the same old up here. It's a lot of the same, and it's always good to have some difference.
Yeah. But you'll be surprised how similar it is up there as it is down here, because it always seems the same because we live it every day.
Yep.
So anything different seems kind of novel and maybe a little bit weird. But people are people, and we all kind of we all basically want the same thing. All the good people, at least, pretty much, just want to be left alone. They want to make a living. They want to go to school. They want to have a nice family life and things like that. And so that's, we just got to help each other, achieve that. We're not always great at it, but so, but no, people are people. Haven't really changed in millions of years we've been on this earth much, other than technology and science. So we pretty much, you know, have the same kind of personalities and things that are hardwired in us. So what
I'll
do you?
jump back in. Oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
no, go.
I was just going to wrap things up, but if you have questions, please do.
No, I just want to think of, you know, after that being that we spoke and things like that, if he had any other maybe aspirations of becoming a police officer. He thought about doing internships anywhere up there. A lot of the departments do that, so you can kind of get a snip. You're not you know, signing any contract that you're going to be a police officer or anything like that. But something that's interesting to go for a ride along and things like that. You kind of see it live action. You know, once all this COVID stuff is, because we couldn't take. We usually entertain like two at any given time, 2 interns. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. Some of them end up becoming cops, you know, some not. Some go, you know, go become lawyers and things like that. So it's, but even if you're not, even if you wanted to be, you know, even if you wanted to sell pottery for a living, you know, riding along with a police officer it's kind of does give you a little different perspective of, because you see the real, you know, you do. And some nights are just dead quiet. Other times you know, the radio's, you know, blasting all night long and you just run a call. So, but it's not like TV. Probably the closest depiction of, well, at least inside the police building would be Barney Miller. If you go on MeTV or something, you look that up. Those personalities and interactions and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not SWAT. It's not those things are fun here. I've gotten to do all that stuff, and you know, but even that is not. That's very sensationalized on TV. So, but that said, I'm glad to spend the time with that. I hope this was beneficial.
Definitely was.
Good.
1,000%. We're so thankful for you guys and Lieutenant Slater at the Ossining Police Department and Louie Pratt from our Whitehall SAD and Empire SAD groups. This has been Coffee with a Cop.